a coherent, cohesive discipline. Mathematics did not begin with the Greeks, even the Greeks say so. Geometry was an African invention. And Pythagoras admitted as much. And so did everybody who came after him. This is a written mathematical papyrus that is 4,000 years old. This is the title page. I'm just going to read you the translation of the title page. The entrance into the knowledge of all existing things and obscure secrets. Interesting title page for a mathematical treatise. We find in the Rind mathematical papyrus, we find formulas for the area of the rectangle, which is problem number 6. This is the Rind mathematical papyrus. There are, I think, 4 mathematical papyri that have been discovered. One is the Moscow mathematical papyrus, showing you the area of a rectangle, or the formula for obtaining the area of a rectangle, A equals L times B. This is problem number 14 of the Moscow papyrus. This is the formula for finding the volume of a truncated pyramid. Now, the volume for a truncated pyramid gives you volume equals height, 1/3 the height, times a squared, ab plus b squared. This is actually more difficult than finding the volume of the total pyramid. So if they could, check on the job says, he who can do more can do less. So if they can find the volume of the truncated pyramid, they also knew the volume of the pyramid, how to find the volume of the pyramid. 1/3 the height times area squared. This is problem number 56, also from the Rind mathematical papyrus. This is a problem that allows them to demonstrate how to find the slope of the pyramid. And in this problem, they actually deal with cotangents, showing that they had also not only begun their studies in geometry, but also in trigonometry as well. Among these ancient people of the Nile, these ancient black peoples of the Nile, we find the first evidence of algebra, because in the Rind mathematical papyruses, number 24 to 27, are algebraic equations of the first degree. They also handled algebraic equations of the second degree. Algebra is basically, if you have to strip it down to its essentials, its ability to solve problems when you have an unknown. Now, we call that unknown usually X or Y. The ancient Kamites used to call it a quantity.
Ancient Egyptian. Logic, arithmetic, astronomy, geometry, and music, what we call the 7 liberal arts. This was the educational system that was in place at the time that Greek people came to Kemen.
Now go back and show who the people were that established this.
Okay, the people, the
images you showed earlier.
Okay, the images that we're showing are these people. See, now I just skipped back to the 12th dynasty, but in this dynasty, these people were teaching trigonometry. In other words, we have papyri with math problems on them, the Rhind papyrus, the Moscow papyrus, with problems on them. These papyri were written in the 12th dynasty, and they had problems not only in geometry, but also in trigonometry. That just gives you an example of how much, how highly developed mathematics to the world.
All right.
Put my glasses on and actually read this a little bit. Yes. Problem number 56 in the Rind mathematical papyrus, that's the one you see up there, seeks to find the slope of a pyramid whose height is 250 cubits and whose base is 360 cubits. The answer is 5 1/25 palms for each cubit in height, representing the cotangent of the angle of the slope of the pyramid's face. Now, if you've got a cotangent, if you can find cotangents, you know the way you can find tangents is that you flip the cotangent over. It's the inverse of a tangent. The other thing, too, just look at that. Imagine that that pyramid is three-dimensional, because that's what it's supposed to be. Now, all you really have to do is inscribe a triangle inside that pyramid. A right triangle whose height is also the same as the height of the pyramid. Therefore, the face becomes the hypotenuse. And half of the pyramid's base becomes the base of that right triangle, and then the height of the pyramid becomes the height of the right triangle. When you have all that in place, and it's really just a matter of drawing it in, you then can find sine and cosine. So now, if they have the tangent and cotangent and the ability to find sine and cosine, by definition, they have trigonometry.
No wonder Mama sent me to college. No wonder she said, son, remember the powers in the knowledge.
Point to the fact that the calendar we use today is derived from the Egyptian. They were the first people to invent the second of time, the second of art, the hour, the minute. Their astronomical observations over many years produced these ideas, these precise quantities and volumes and times and standards which were later to dominate the world. The Babylonians did not have any proper calendar. The Egyptians had the 365 and a quarter days. That calendar was invented in Ethiopia since 4241 BC. And before I leave Egypt, as I say, I don't want to dwell too much in that.
Quantity, aha. This is the earliest example of algebraic procedure. Right, did we know then that black people invented algebra? There's the proof. And therefore, if people knew their history, if people knew that their history was relevant, then they wouldn't want to be trying to aspire to be somebody else.
That's right, that's right.
Right, the calibration of the Karnak water clock. Right, let me explain this. Right, what's going on here? There's a water clock where if you look at the inside of it, we've got it divided up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months, right? And then at certain points of the month, the days get longer and shorter. Does that make sense? And therefore, the calibration of the holes is different. So each hole is 1 hour. So you get it? So when you fill it, there's your first hour, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th. You follow me? And then by the time it runs out, 12 hours. So we've got 12 hours of the night is what this actually represents. Now, the idea of the hour, that's an African concept. We invented that. The concept of time is an African concept. We invented that. So we've got the concept of numbers and algebra. We've now got the concept of time.
It has nothing to do with the reality. So, I'm fond of asking young black students is why are you afraid of mathematics? Why do you run away from mathematics and physics? Africa invented mathematics and physics. That isn't my opinion, that just happens to be the reality. I didn't make it happen. That just happens to be the way it is. And the Greeks themselves say so, not once, not twice, but at least a dozen times. All the Greek mathematicians studied in Egypt. Eudoxus, Archimedes, Hipparchus, Pythagoras, Thales, Plato. In fact, the Greeks were in a habit, if they didn't study in Egypt, they would say they would in order to give themselves credibility.
Of that civilization. But what's important is that when Kemet appears in the human record, it appears in 3100 BC with a fully developed civilization. Writing was already in place. Astronomy was already in place. They already had the 365-day year calendar and 1 quarter for the leap year and all of that. That calendar had actually been put in place around 4236 BC. So we're talking about a fully developed, high technical civilization.
Okay, good. This is the interior of the Grand Gallery, showing how it would have been used to measure the time of movement of the stars across this particular area. And it would have therefore given them some way of measuring the minute of arc.
Why didn't we know about this? Because if you go among the Bushmen of the Kalahari, or the Wooga and the Luga Booga, you're not going to find mathematics. Look at mathematics in Europe. It was nothing. Do you know that when the numbers system 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's Hindu, the Arabs and Africans invaded Europe as Moors, and the Arabs brought from India the numbers Fibonacci, yes, brought it to Europe first in 1202, but the Europeans didn't accept it because the church said numbers are works of the devil. It's as late as the 17th century.
I'm going to say a little bit about the Great Pyramid. Certainly the grandest edifice of its kind ever created by the hand of man. Just want to say I just want to point out two things about the Great Pyramid. 483 feet in height. The base of the pyramid is 13 acres in area. It was built out of 2.7 million blocks of stone. The lightest stone was 1 ton. The heaviest was 7 tons. Planed to such a smoothness that when they were fitted together, if you plucked the hair out of your head, you could not fit it between the joints. Oriented precisely to the 4 cardinal points. The descending passage was built at 3 degrees 43 minutes in slope. Oriented exactly to Alpha Draconis, which shone down at 3340 BC, 3340 BC, and it won't shine it down it again until 26,000 years later. The height of the pyramid, if you multiply it by 1 billion, gives you the mean distance between Earth and Sun. People say that's a coincidence. Well, if there is such thing as a father of medicine, it is this man or it is no one, Imhotep. Even though he lived 3,000 years before Hippocrates, we actually know more about him than we know about Hippocrates. We knew who his parents were, we knew where he was born, where he was raised, what he did. He was, as Sir William Osler, and this was Osler's institution right here, Osler practically founded this institution, did he not? Osler said of Imhotep, and by the way, Osler himself was, I've read some books by Osler. Osler was no joke. He was real. He was a real Renaissance physician, one of the last in this country anyway. And what does he say about Imhotep? The first figure of a physician to stand out clearly from the mists of antiquity. Or as I like to call him, the first universal genius of whom we have any knowledge. He was prime minister under Djoser, so therefore a statesman. He was renowned as a philosopher and a purveyor of oral wisdom. He was an architect of genius, having designed and built the step pyramid of Saqqara, but above all, he was a divinely gifted physician. So great was his renown as a physician that by the 6th century BC, he became deified as a physician and worshipped by the Greeks, including Hippocrates, because Asclepios was identified with Imhotep. So when you worship Asclepios, you would worship Imhotep. So in the Hippocratic Oath, when the physician says, I swear by the god Apollo and I swear by the god Imhotep, swear by Asclepios, he is in fact swearing by Imhotep.
Imhotep, the father of medicine and a black multi-genius. The achievements of the black people of ancient Egypt have shown us that black people built truly one of the greatest civilizations of ancient times. But do you know that a person generally regarded as the most talented individual in the history of the ancient world was a black man? He was an Egyptian named Imhotep. Imhotep was the son of an architect. He lived during the reign of King Djoser of Egypt in 2980 BC. He was an exceptionally brilliant man. He was versed in medicine, architecture, engineering, philosophy, poetry, religion, and astronomy. It is through his work and writings that the Western world first learned of the existence of objective and scientific medicine based on the repeated and careful observation of a patient. It is said also that Imhotep knew about the circulation of the blood.
He discovered this at least 4,000 years before it was known in Europe. Imhotep diagnosed and treated more than 200 diseases. These included disorders of the eyes, bladder, abdomen, and skin. Imhotep's contribution to the development of medical knowledge in the ancient world was such that the Greeks worshipped him as the father of medicine and their god of healing. Much later, after the sacking of Egypt by Alexander the Great in 332 BC, many laid claim to Imhotep's achievements. Today, Western civilization holds to the belief that the Greek Hippocrates was the father of medicine. Yet, the Hippocratic oath taken by every medical doctor in Western civilization pays homage to the god Apollo and the father of medicine, Asclepius, which incidentally was the Greek name for Imhotep. Apart from his work in medicine, Imhotep designed the first pyramid, which was built by the Egyptians. This pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Saqqara, was an outstanding example of this black genius's engineering and architectural skill. It was the first building in the world to be constructed solely from stone and was one of the tallest buildings in the ancient world.
Appendicitis, gout, and arthritis. He also performed surgery and practiced some dentistry. This is the world's oldest known surgical document, the Edwin C. Smith Papyrus. Edwin Smith was merely a purchaser of precious antiquities. He had no ownership in its genius. That belongs to the African Renaissance man, Imhotep. The Edwin C. Smith Papyrus is a medical book of 48 different surgical procedures written in exquisite detail, dealing with cranial sutures, the external surface of the brain, examination, diagnosis, and treatment of head injuries, fractures of the neck, collarbone, skull, nose, and arm, as well as tumors, cysts, sprains, and dislocations. Imhotep not only made an impression on his pharaoh Zoser and the elites of the Third Dynasty, he left a legacy that would last for more than 2,000 years after his death.
We are doing this because it is necessary to revise the history of man. The tremendous anguish which is deep in the heart of all of us, which arises out of these falsehoods, the falsehoods upon which this civilization are built, have got to go.
Look at Proverbs, the simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going.